everybody. Donna Schwartz here from the Everything Saxophone Podcast. I'm so happy to have Greg Banaszak back on the Everything Saxophone Podcast. We spoke, it was actually episode 152 from 2022. I can't believe it's been 3.5 years since we spoke on the podcast, but we've been, chatting back and forth in the years since that, and I'm so happy to have him back on the show because he's got a new thing coming up very soon that we wanted to talk about. So welcome back to the show, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Don. It's great to be here, and it's always a pleasure. I really appreciate you having me as a guest.
Awesome. Cool. So first thing that we were actually, honestly, we have to be honest, everybody, we were talking a little bit beforehand and I said, oh, no, I got to get this on the tape. We got to record this. So when we spoke in 2022, one of the big things that we talked about was your massive project about Bird with Strings, right? And how the way you approached that was truly like 100% emulation, everything to a T that Bird did. Let's talk about that. And I want to talk about your approach to that, like what your thought process was for how you wanted to approach that project, not putting your own stamp necessarily on it. It's more like this is like an emulation for the most part and honoring what Bird did as opposed to you maybe changing things up, rearranging. Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, I had the idea came to fruition just through Jackie McLean because Jackie did it one time in Pesaro, Italy, and he came back and he had such a great time with the orchestra, and he was just talking to me. I mean, being Bird's only student, he was talking to me about how he couldn't get away from playing his exact ideas. Bird professed at the time that was that he was diligent in practicing daily. He felt like he was finally being respected as a saxophonist, as a musician. The 2 European tours, he received a ton of accolades. He felt good about himself finally in his music. So my stance on it is, it's still in its infancy. There's other people playing it, which is really great. Vincent Herring, Danny Jankow from California.
Okay.
And I just think that if it's performed at a high level, that the audience should hear exactly what Bird played. And maybe I take it a little to the extreme because for years I even matched his vibrato. I mean, everything. What do you think he did? I matched anything. So I want someone to say that it sounds like Charlie Parker, maybe on a modern setup. But I didn't I don't want to say try to be myself. I was more in the mindset of paying homage to him because everyone stated that's when he was at his finest. He practiced every day. Um, he kept his unfortunate habits to a minimum. So I remember a trumpet player came up to me at Severance Hall. We played it here in Cleveland with a Cleveland Pops Orchestra. And he says, "Why don't you play something by yourself? Why don't you just blow over the changes?" I says, "Well, how can I play anything better than Charlie Parker?" And it feels really good to do it. I mean, you feel like anytime I do it, well, sometimes was really cooking, and it almost feels like you're seeing in black and white. You see the audience like a 1940s thing. So for me, that's my feelings on it. I want people to hear his ideas. I want everything he's doing, all the nuances and things like that. So until it gets like, so repeated in the marketplace, then I think it's okay to take liberties and put your own personal stamp on it. But I think there's a lot to be learned from learning exactly what he did. Because he was just, I mean, he was morphing time. He was playing within one descending phrase, there's 3 different keys. I mean, it's really, really incredible. Bird did practice what he was doing. He did think about I guess, to be more articulate, he had preconceived ideas of what he wanted to play. He just wasn't, okay, the next night wasn't something else. He repeated his ideas and his concepts for the most part.
Can we talk about that more? Okay, so he did have some preconceived ideas, but it's not like he composed the work. He still was improvising.
Right. He was still improvising, but his improvisation was just I don't know. It's, from Just Friends. My CD has 6 tracks of Parker. I wish I could get more. It was just a question of time with the orchestra, like what time allocation I had to record. They gave me 2 hours to record everything, and there's no editing. So editing was not an option. It was actually done in an hour before a concert, an outdoor concert. But I knew that. I was ready for it, and I had a lot of performances under my belt. I performed a lot in Europe and Asia, the Middle East even, India. I've played it in a lot of concert halls, but the only major concert hall I've played it in is our own Cleveland Orchestra Severance Hall, which was amazing. And I even noted to the audience, it's such a pleasure to finally play Charlie Parker's music in a major concert hall. And I think others, I'm not the only one doing this. I think others should really continue to do this. I just turned 60 this week. In 5 minutes it's going to be 70. So, um, I have a new student. His name is Bobby Bellairs, and he's from Minnesota, and he's working with me at Case Western. He's my new graduate student, and he did Bird with Strings with his university orchestra at St. Olaf. So I think the next generation is embracing it of saxophonists because it's an important historical as the historical aspects of Charlie Parker. Saxophone in a jazz setting playing with orchestra is great. Um, I've for I don't know how many years, since 1989, I've played concertos with orchestras all over the world, and I still enjoy doing that. But my favorite concerts, I don't know if I could do it anymore. I think I was in better shape, was when I would play a classical concerto the first half, and then I would promote this to a conductor. In the second half, we would do Bird with Strings. It's like an evening of saxophone, they would promote it as. And that's great. I'm just trying to knock on more doors here in the States to do it.
That's what I was gonna ask you. So, okay, this I find really interesting. So, you're saying the only for you playing this, for you performing this, the only US hall was at CIM. It wasn't anywhere else.
Yeah, well, the Cleveland Orchestra Hall, Severance Hall.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, usually I know Phil Woods played it at a Marriott hotel, you know,
Okay.
in their ballroom. I mean, it deserves the respect of Mozart, Handel, Bach. And I really feel, if since I'm in that medium and I live in that genre as well, I want to just play exactly what he did so people can hear his genius. And it's no small undertaking because, boy, that what he did was incredible. I mean, if you're a wonderful saxophonist, he knew the saxophone's technical side of things, like fork F sharp side, all the things that people call them altered fingerings and things of that nature. He was using anything and everything. I know that intimately because that's the only way to play those phrases. You know, there was no, trick fingerings. Everything was fair game, just like that of like a classical French saxophonist.
Yeah. Yeah, so, in my head as you're speaking about this, I'm just thinking, with all the orchestral programming in the United States, right? What a great addition it would be to have Bird with Strings, whether a part of it, one piece of it, one you know what I'm saying? One
Oh yeah.
piece of that. I think it'd be a great part of the program to bring in a soloist to do that, to expose the audience to that.
And I concur. I've spent like I think it's been almost 40 years trying to do it, and sometimes you get yeses, sometimes nos, maybes. Um,
I don't know.
it's better, but you have to knock on a lot of doors, and it just has to be the right setting. Usually with pops orchestras, like most orchestras have a pops orchestra affiliated with it. Um, and then there has to be maybe a theme to it. Like it bodes well to have it promoted with a summer concert series, an outdoor festival.
Okay.
I've played a few of those, which were were a lot of fun. A few flies in the air, so
Oh, ugh, okay, no, that's not that's no, but I'm thinking, all right, okay, let's say it's outside. Why not the Hollywood Bowl, right?
sure.
All right, but it doesn't even have to be that because I don't know. I think this is a missed opportunity when I think about it. This would be great for the New York Philharmonic. This would be great for the Los Angeles Philharmonic. It doesn't have to be those big orchestras either. but why not have this element? Classical music, you know, has been struggling for a while. So you wanna bring more interest in, and you wanna bring more interest in from various areas. So I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, a and that's probably for your, admiration and respect of Charlie Parker. We're also dealing with things changing in the music industry. People like, I mean, if they understand the history of the music, then it's probably easier, and there's a lot of great people out there that really support it, and there's now the people that are doing, contracting and things like that, they're in their late 20s, early 30s. So they might prefer to hear something more modern. Um,
Okay.
more modern meaning I even do something I really market myself in several different ways. I'll do something with saxophone and movie music themes. So like Taxi Driver, Cinema Paradiso. I'll say they might come to me and say, well, we don't want to do that. It's kind of dated to them or archaic. So instead of me saying, no, it's not, or explaining the history, I might even say, well, there's other options, just so first of all, the instrument gets on the stage with an orchestra. So maybe they don't want that. Well, we could do something else. Like there's a lot of film music that incorporates saxophone with strings. So I'll do that. And then they might not even be interested in that. I'll say, what about a standard concerto? There's Alexander Glazunov, Jacques Ibert, Pierre Max Dubois, Hector Villalobos, and then I'll promote or propose four of those concertos. And they'll say, well, they'll get back to me. And, I just juggle all these things. And I would say, at least once a week, I'm in contact with someone to promote something. So everyone asks me how I get all these engagements. Uh, I knock on several doors with the hope that someone will respond with even a maybe, and then I'll pursue that. And the people that say they might be adamant, be like, no, this isn't us, and we're not interested at all. And we like younger artists or something of that nature, which is fine. I never think a no is a no. I think it's like, okay, well, maybe we could speak in a few more years, which is fine. And that's also um, uh, had been positive instead of being like, well, you don't know what you're missing.
Sure.
If you have someone's ear to bend on trying to engage them, they might, with all those options, they might feel like, okay, well, maybe not this, but something else. So give them, try to work hand in hand. So they might have some ideas how they perceive the saxophone, or maybe not Charlie Parker with strings, but then I'll say, well, what about all this film music? There's hundreds of films that have saxophone, even some Disney. There's Toy Story 5, that has Chad Smith playing saxophone. He's a great player. He would be a good guest for your boy. He plays great. He's a wonderful saxophonist, Chad Smith.
Yeah, I'm writing it down.
I've never met him, but he has Al Galladoro's saxophone, and I've spoken with him a little bit. He's just a monster player. He's just very modest and nails everything. Just a great guy. And again, I've never met him. I just knew him. With my 25 or whatever, how many years with the Saxophone Journal, I got to meet so many people I interviewed.
I'm just thinking though, what you're talking about now, first of all, I find it a little ironic that they would say, "Oh, well, we want something more modern," yet classical orchestras play Mozart. I mean, come on.
Right.
Okay, so that's a little weird. But anyway, I mean, the thought off the top of my head, another theme would be tracing the saxophone, like the evolution through, yeah, I'll say it through classical music, but also leading up to Bird with Strings and maybe beyond. That would be hard though, because then you have to be like you, have great classical chops and also great jazz chops as well. But I'm just thinking like that kind of program or series.
Yeah, I did a few concerts like that. I would promote like saxophone and an evening of saxophone with orchestra, something of that nature. And I would play a standard concerto the first half, then at intermission, it would be Bird with Strings. And I did that a lot in Europe, a few orchestras in Connecticut I did it with. And that was great. But seriously, I think I would have to be I'm practicing more than ever, and I don't know how I did that because, I think if I get in the right frame of mind, I could do it again, but that was I don't know how I did that, and it's not about being younger. I hope I'm a better player than I was then. I'm trying to be, but, um, yeah, there was one concert I played 3 classical concertos the first half. It was all saxophone, and they were all multiple movements. In one concert, I played, the Glazunov, the Ibert, and the Villalobos on soprano. That was the first half.
Wow.
Second half was Bird with Strings.
Wow. Okay.
And
Yeah.
and then we did it a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday matinee, and this was with the, Polish National Chamber Orchestra. So they were spot on in the there's a lot of great, jazz musicians in Poland, and it was just great. So, I'm looking back on some things now that I hit 60, and I'm like, how do I repeat I'm trying to repeat what I did 10 years ago or 20 years ago maybe.
This is so interesting though, because, one of the things that we're actually kind of talking about in a sense is when it comes to, preparing your mind, also preparing your body, right? And your thought process, your tonal concept, going from classical to jazz. And the thing is, I was listening to one of the recent interviews of you that you sent me, and, you know, talking about how to, yeah, I guess how to approach that, and you're the type of person, and not a lot of people are like you where they have equal ability with classical with jazz, but a lot of people can play a lot of styles, but they don't play classical. Or a lot of people are great classical players, maybe a little bit of jazz. Like Sean Maxwell was one. I just interviewed him. He's awesome, right? Great, great chops. Not everybody's like equal in those realms. So, but the other thing I'm thinking about too is that that may become something, with the younger generation coming up, that may become something more where they can be equally adapt.
Think so, because, the students that I have the pleasure of teaching, they're just getting stronger and better. I have 4 well, now they'll be sophomores, but, these 4 freshmen that I had, this past year, they just sound great. So I think there's hope for it, and they have to have the interest. I never, I don't promote my career via my students or the people I work with. I have some adult students that play great. I mean, if they want to go this route, that's fine. If they want to just pursue studying classical, that's fine. If they want to study really playing the changes and playing, bebop with the proper way, like being able to play a tune and outline all the chord changes before you do any alterations and substitutions. So if they put a metronome on and they're doing some Cole Porter tunes, I Love You, you should be able to hear the tune through everything you're playing. Um, it just depends. There's only so many hours in the day. You have to make choices as well. Um, but I made those choices, and there's other people. I studied with Vincent Abata, who was the first person I feel that really put classical saxophone on the map in a commercial setting, meaning that he toured it, he was just like music's music. He didn't approach it like it was from someone that doesn't play jazz, and he played with Dorsey, Glenn Miller, all those guys, Benny Goodman. He didn't improvise as far as like playing chord changes, but he was a great section player. He played with, New York Phil. He played with, the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. He played bass clarinet and I mean, I didn't put too many labels on classical and jazz saxophone, but the big difference is a tonal center. Like, when you're playing classically, you should have a dark, rich, gorgeous sound. You should be able to emulate your vibrato to that of the string section you're playing with. That's really important that term blending. Everyone talks about blending, but if you're playing with strings, you have to be able to. If you're playing with a cello soloist, there's a duet in the Glazunov with the principal cellist in the saxophone. You have to, and they're in the high register where you have to emulate that sound. If not, it just doesn't work. Um, so I think it's just what I try to do is I play with just a lot of string sections myself. I used to play as an undergrad at the Hart School. I would just sit with the violinist and say, "Okay, just let me hear your scales and let me play with you." And they would roll their eyes and they would be like, "What are you doing?" But I just wanted. I heard the instrument always doing everything it does.
Okay, this is okay. What you're saying right now, this is the first time I've ever heard someone say how they would emulate the vibrato of strings as a saxophone player. So I
Yeah.
like yeah, I've not heard anybody say that, so I find that really interesting, and this goes back to before I had taken a note actually where you said when you were doing the Project Bird with with strings, you learned it by ear, so we're gonna talk about that, but you also got it down to where you were really emulating the vibrato, wave by wave, so to speak.
Yeah, everything.
How for the listeners, right, who some of them are daunted by learning things by ear. Let's talk about that. Like, how do what kind of advice can you give people that, maybe are intermediate level players or something that it's just so hard for them to play by ear?
Well, you could the best thing to do is just even be devoid of styles. Don't think classical or jazz, just a beautiful sound. Like it could be a voice actually. The voice is wonderful to emulate and just try to find whatever it's, pop musicians play in the key of E, which is alto C sharp a lot. Just try to dial in a gorgeous C sharp and just sound good. That should be done I still do that every day. I'll just spin the wheel and I'll just find something and press play. I'll grab a CD and it could be Stravinsky, um, and I might work on an English horn solo or the trumpet solo. Like I try to sound like every instrument I can. But that being said, just when you're doing it early on, it's just try to find something that you like and you want to sound like. So you could say you like the vibrato and the color of Whitney Houston's voice. Well, great. Put that on your high register. Nothing wrong with that. Mariah Carey can sing several octaves. Well, work on your super high register, especially tenor players, and she's in tune. It's not auto tune. She sings, yeah, that's the real deal.
Yeah, and that would be a challenge in and of itself, to
Yeah, so
emulate
you
that.
grab one note and you just keep on doing it. And 1 o'clock becomes 3 o'clock. And before I kind of let my stomach dictate when I stop. Like when I'm hungry, I'll say, okay, a little bit more and then I'll grab something to eat. And yeah, but when you really focused, when you do this type of focus practicing, time goes by very quickly. Um, and it's enjoyable and you may not sound great. That's the other thing is you're not going to get everything right. You could be transcribing Sonny Stitt, which is, Sonny Stitt was a master technician. He was a genius, I think. Very, uh, if Charlie Parker was Mozart, Sonny Stitt was Bach.
Interesting.
Yeah, because Stitt just play everything was clean and clear. It was with Charlie Parker as well. They're just two different styles. So I try to that's a good analogy I use with classical musicians to try to maybe understand where we're coming from, the saxophone players or jazz musicians.
Yeah, and I wanna get back, though, to the learning by ear because it's for some people, it's so hard for them to do that, but I like what you're saying too in terms of you don't just have to stick with the saxophone. Like, my trumpet teacher would say, "You should be listening." He didn't say transcribe, but you should be listening to the opera stars, UC Björling. He always mentioned UC Björling, and I would think of, Jessie Norman. I always liked the way she sang, and he was always saying, like, model your trumpet sound after the opera singers. And it's just interesting that just kinda came back to me, and maybe that's a great tip for a lot of people here too. You don't just have to emulate saxophone players. Like you said, you spin the wheel. Okay, so what's up for today? An English horn concerto or, "Oh, you know what? This piece of an opera. What can I do? How could I be, I guess, a chameleon, right? To make it sound exactly like that."
And what better instrument? I mean, that's the saxophone's heart. I mean, it could really sound like anything.
Yeah.
It's about equipment's important, but it's not a it's about what you hear really. You could morph the saxophone to sound like anything you want. And that's the thing is like there's so many great players out there. You could learn from younger players. There's no, you know, there's just so much talent out there right now. 60 years just to figure all this stuff out.
Well, and wouldn't you also agree though, even from 5 years ago, right? Every time I go to the NAMM show, there's, there's new mouthpiece models out, there's new mouthpiece makers, there's so much more equipment, it's crazy, and even, like, with some, instrument makers, like what Eastman Winds, have done in terms of designing the saxophone, with the new, well, it's not even new anymore, with the 52nd Street series where Bob Mintzer, advised on that. Now Alex Hahn is advising on the new version of the alto and with like the fingering system and all that kind of stuff. Just the things that people are doing. My friend Melvin with the growling sax, and Victory Instruments and all the stuff because he has an engineer's mind and all the stuff that he's done, to make saxophone playing. I don't want to say easier. It's not easier, but more enjoyable.
Yeah, find what works for you. Um, I try things out, especially, being a Vandoren clinician. I just tried their new synthetic reed. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, it just works. You just the whole idea of like you might have a long day, you come home, you put it on, and it functions. And I always question the maybe some synthetic reeds have a little too much flexibility where your pitch it gets a little wonky. These are like spot on, or I'm spot on, or I'm have the ability to play in tune. At least for me, it's been a pleasant surprise. Um, and then I found out that I'm not getting a sore here, my lip, just from if I could practice all day, I will. I mean, some people uh, mix paint for 8 hours a day. So there's nothing. Why not do a 40-hour work week of just practicing?
Oh my God. Well, I'd love that, first of all, but I'm really curious 'cause you know what? I haven't had a chance to check out the synthetic reeds from Van Doren or interview about that. Have you tried like have you compared them to to Legers or to Fiber Reed or anything like that?
No, I used to play on Barry
Oh yeah.
B-A-R-E.
Yep.
Um, and I even made a CD with one of them. I mean the Reed, Um, And so at the time, I was playing on that. That was a long time ago. That was in the late '80s. Um, well, but I haven't compared them to other products. I just want to try out the Van Doren products, and yeah, I've been I don't want to say surprised. It's been working out pretty well. And then I'll bounce to Kane, and I'm just I honestly still don't know all the differences with all the types of reeds that Van Doren offers. Like there's red Java, there's green Java,
Yeah.
there's Java. You know,
Yeah, and then
I should, but I'm being, my bad. But I just been trying to dig in just a little bit more in my, my summer schedule, which this month has been okay. But July gets super busy. Then I go to India and tour there for August, and then classes resume. So I do local concerts or concerts in the States, but I try to minimize my overseas playing throughout the academic year because unless I have to, if someone says the date is November 9th, then I'll be on a plane or whatever.
okay, got it. No, and that's hard. That's hard, especially, with the time changes and stuff like that. And I just want to let me just go back to something for a second too, though, because I'm curious about this. With the Van Doren synthetic reed, is it one synthetic reed where you can play all styles, or do you know what I mean? Like Ligier has the American cut, which I use, but they also have the signature and whatever. So yeah,
They have a jazz cut and
okay,
classical cut.
okay,
They both feel a little different, and they kind of like lean towards that style. So the jazz cut is a little more vibrant, at least for my, or like lets me sound a little more vibrant. The classical cut is a little darker or richer, or allows you to be darker or richer if you're going in that route. So however they figured it out, I don't know how they did it, but they work pretty well. And again, so it's another option. I mean, there's nothing wrong with traditional cane reeds.
no, there isn't. But again, if you're like I know a lot of people that let's say, maybe they live in New York, but they've got concerts in Colorado. You've got to deal with altitude. You got to deal with
Yeah.
different types of, you know what I mean, different weather changes. But I'm wondering, Like, would you ever consider doing an album or have you done shows with the synthetic reeds?
I did one album, I think in 95 with a Barry synthetic reed, for Open Loop Records. And the jazz pieces, I used that. And just like I said, this upcoming tour of India, you're talking about the climate differences. You know, having this is my fourth time being there, and I just know it's just brutal. The temperatures are arduous and super hot. So I think I may just use synthetic, the Vandoren synthetic reeds, just because I'm not going to have that issue. Unless it melts.
Yeah, not I use the I do use the Legers, and out here in California, there's times when it gets to 109 degrees, and I played, I remember one time I played a park, I think it was in Woodland Hills, it was in the summertime, it was in August, and it was 100 degrees, it was so hot. Thank God we had a little bit of a covering, but, yeah, no, that's the great thing about synthetic reeds, you don't have to worry about the changes, and if you have a long break before you go on and play and you have no time to get that reed wet, I mean, that's what I love about that stuff.
Well, yeah, and with those type of, like Korea in the summer can be pretty brutal. I taught a lot in Korea in the summers. My reeds would look like potato chips. I mean, it was just, well, I was putting, yeah, I mean, for real. I was like, what's going on? But
That's funny.
it was true. I was like, wow. I showed the oboe player. I was like, look at this reed. And I says, how do you deal with it? So I kind of bent their ear and they said, well, at least, some of the double reed players, because I always kind of gravitate not to as much saxophone players, but the people that are dealing with two reeds in their mouth and no place to bite. They really understand reeds. One knife stroke away from failing or ruining a great reed. So I always kind of bend to the ear and acquire knowledge from oboe players and bassoonists because they're dealing with two reeds wrapped up with wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they live through cane, and I've seen, you know, oboe players have their careers made and broke just because a reed's not functioning that day.
Yeah, that's hard, and that's where I know Leger, came up they have, new lines of, bassoon and oboe reeds. I'm sure, other manufacturers are gonna follow suit, because all the hours that they spend to perfect their reeds, I think that, that would be definitely, you know, something that they would wanna pursue, but while we're talking about it, you have played all over the world, and I'm gonna ask this question first. Have you found audiences more receptive, in other parts of the world, particularly Europe, when it came to whether it was the bird with strings or other things that you were playing?
I think all my experiences, and there's been a lot, have all been great overseas. I mean, it's such a different culture. And this is, you're covering the Middle East, you're covering Asia, even India. For me to travel, and I did the same concert. I did the Glasnow Concerto the first half, and then the second half, I did Bird with Strings. And they only have one orchestra, Symphony Orchestra India. And
Oh, wow.
we toured the country doing that. In fact, I had such a great concert planned. I forget the Praviti Theater, it was called, and they had a rotating stage that rotated very slowly, and it was everything was pitch black. So once you got seated, no one was allowed to move. No cameras with cell phones, and the stage rotated but very slowly. So you were in a circular theater.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it wasn't fast. I mean, everyone says it wasn't like a merry-go-round. It was just like very nominal movement, but it was just the whole idea that everyone was acquiring sound. It was a little weird because I looked at the lights and I got a little, but
Well, I played, so I grew up on Long Island and,
right, right.
Westbury Music Fair, that's it, and so I played on that stage, and I've seen concerts, I saw Chuck Mangione there. It didn't move all the way around if I remember, I think it maybe moved in a half moon, I could be wrong, but, it's ever so slight, and the reasoning behind that is so everyone has a good view, and it's kind of cool. It kind of definitely is cool, and that was a great theater. I know they changed the name after that, I keep forgetting what it was, but, but that was a great theater. But you did you find that audiences were, yeah, I guess maybe more appreciative of music?
Yeah, in general, but, not to, diss the American audiences in any way. I think we have so much at our fingertips. I just think, it goes a little deeper than appreciating music. I mean, most Europeans, everyone plays an instrument. There's a day in France which is just celebrating music. I think it's just a different mentality, where most people, can sit down and play piano. I've seen ambassadors sit down and play Bach and Chopin, and they sound amazing.
Wow.
I think it's more part of their upbringing, their culture, and it's within their DNA. So but not that it isn't in the States. I just think the pie grap's a little bit different, you know.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because there's of course, there's all different types of music all over the world, and there's more with some cultures, the music is really part of the culture. It's so important, and there's a specific like with America, jazz should be America's music, right? But not everybody agrees with that. They'll say maybe country is or something else is. But with certain countries like Greece, Greek folk music. You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain styles that everybody knows because that's what they, were brought up on and maybe still performing to this day. But when I'm saying appreciative, I'm just thinking about, you know, I just remember a lot of times people would go to Europe and they get more reception from the audience, they're the halls would be more filled, um, you know what I'm saying? That's where I'm coming from with that, and I think you're right. I think you're right, though, here, there's so much for people to do that if there was less to do, I think the concert halls would be more packed.
Yeah. Yeah, and then getting to, I've had a few students that went on into, marketing with, concert series and things like that, and, like career management, that's important as well. Like the future is in the younger people that have their hands on the to-go button, like, okay, to agree on this, is making sure that you're engaging with them, and so it's important to understand where they're coming from instead of, like, dictating, "Okay, well, Charlie Parker's Meet with Strings is a great thing, and you should really love it." I have to find out what they're turned on by or what their thoughts are or their background, so
That's right.
it's just not like random robocalls where, like, I'm like, "Play Bird with Strings."
That's funny. That's a funny analogy, but it's true. It really is true. You wanna meet the audience where it's at, and then so we have this saying, it's chocolate covered broccoli. And so the thing is that Bird with Strings, this is something that people should be listening to or, certain types of pieces of music, but you have to meet the audience where it's at. So you have to put chocolate on top of what they perceive as broccoli, until they like really listen like, "Oh, this is really cool," you know?
And the chocolate should be good. So
Yeah.
we're not just selling, it has to be like premium chocolate. So that everyone's happy at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I wanna get to, like, when you're traveling to Europe, when you're traveling to India, which you're going to be very soon,
Yeah.
how do you adapt, you know, you have to adapt to the time zone, you have to adapt to the weather, the culture. I watched a part of one of the interviews you sent me, and you said, this was a while ago, I think, maybe the first time you went to Mumbai, and it was like a full day ahead or something like that, and you thought you had a day to rest, and you didn't? You had to put on the concert?
Yeah, that was my bad. And my musical partners in crime, Chris Anderson, a great trombonist, and Tara Brown, this wonderful pianist, they looked at me. We had breakfast, and they says, "Well, we'll see you at the dress rehearsal tonight." And we were like, "No, no, no, we're going to sleep." They were like, "No, no, 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 we're going to see it in 2 hours." So
Wow.
that was, I don't know why I did. I just messed up, but yeah, what I do though, to get more to your point, is since there's a 12-hour difference, I'll play at 3 or 4 in the morning. I have a great studio in my home, basement, and I'll play at 3 and 4 in the morning with the fire and energy, how it's going to feel, because that's how my body's going to feel. So you can't fake it. When you're tired, you're tired. So the week or 2 prior, I'll recalibrate my just not my time clock, not staying up late, but I'll make music. So at 4 in the morning, it's like I'm playing for thousands of people. And now I don't suggest that, maybe that's not for everyone, but it works for me. So when I go there, I don't sound like, you can't fight fatigue. I mean, if you're tired, you could do the gig, but you have to feel good about it. You have to have some energy to pass. The audience will pick up on that.
Yeah.
So I started doing that when I was going to like Asia a lot, because there's a 12-hour difference too, or when there's an 8-hour, 9-hour difference. I just figured out, like, I'll just stay up and I'll just play my horn at that time like I'm playing in front of an audience. And
That's brilliant.
yeah, you do feel you're just tired, so you have to work that out, because, I was caught on the carpet a few times where I just couldn't fight, like, fatigue. I mean, I sounded fine, but I was like, "Did I enjoy it?" At the end of the day, I want the audience to enjoy it. I always kind of, like, my goal is to be, invited back. It's not to get paid. I'll get paid, that's fine, but I want to get asked back, "Will you be interested in coming back?" So that's the mark of, like, if I've done my job,
That's
not
cool.
that I get a check in the bank or mailed or whatever. Um, so this is my 4th time to India, so it does work for me. And you have to experience it. You have to know that you're going to be in front of an audience and it's going to feel like 3 or 4 a.m. Plus you have rehearsals, and, time moves very quickly. There's no time to adjust anything. You're just being taken to and from places. You lose time quickly.
But you know what you did? I don't know if you realize this. This is what a lot of great sports people do. This is what, they have to adjust to, let's say, the Olympics, right? And let's say the Olympics are in a different country. So, like, they were in Italy. So, really, top level sports people are going to train in that country. They're gonna go there and they're gonna train early in that country, or they're gonna adjust themselves so that they can adapt to the time difference. Or even like, okay, I love American Ninja Warrior. I think it's an awesome show. And the thing is that when they shoot that, it's usually in Vegas, it's usually overnight. What people don't realize a lot of times when they do, like, shooting for shows and stuff like that, I remember I did, one thing out here, and it was, call time was, like, 11 p.m., and you're going overnight, and so you've gotta prepare yourself for that because, you're going against your circadian rhythms and, it's maybe one night of doing that you may be okay, but it can mess you up, so you did that kind of Olympic preparation, I'll say, in order to be able to do those shows, and
Yeah.
I'd probably venture to say that you're doing that now, you're gonna get to do that very soon as you prepare to go, to India again.
Yeah, I'm digging in. Like I said, I don't know if it's good or bad. I kind of let my appetite dictate my practicing. So I like to get in fundamentals, yeah, everyone has a warm up, whatever it is. And I like to do that early on, and then just get to some music. And I always do like things that are very meticulous, spot on, something that's like tonally creative, like just grabbing something I want to hear and just mixing it up. So I have thousands of CDs. I'll just grab one random CD, and now it could be like Zoot Sims or something, or it could be Tom Stacy on English horn. I'll say, okay, alter my setup to the style, and I'll just try to keep uh, agility with my sound and my flexibility. Or I'll go on YouTube and just click on something, and we're and if I don't want to say if I don't like it, if it's not going to help me, then I just go on to something else. I think anyone playing our instrument, I give them credit. It's easy to judge, but I just anyone picking up a saxophone, they're just trying to make music. They're just trying to enjoy the instrument and play. So you don't have to sound like John Coltrane or Jackie McLean or Sigurd Rasher or Vincent Abato. You just be happy. You could play happiness through your saxophone, which I've had a resurgence of doing that because there's a great alto player, Patrick Bartley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Pat, when you hear him play, he just sounds happy. And that might be a random concept or abstract concept, but how do you put like happiness through your instrument so the audience picks up on that? Why do I find myself gravitating to hearing him play? Because it's turning me on. But he puts like I told that to someone, they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, he's putting happiness through his saxophone, and that's why he's playing everywhere. He just sounds great. He's just knocking it out of the park. and he's not worried about this substitution or that. He's just beyond all that. And yeah, great. Yeah, the future is great with all these Emmanuel Wilkins. There's so many great players out there.
It's interesting, as soon as you mentioned that Patrick Bartley, like, you hear happy, I can understand that. Like, when you think about it and you're thinking about that person and how they're playing, you get this image in your head and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, you know what? You're right. I can relate to that."
Yeah,
It's maybe abstract, but in some ways it's not because, music is about feeling.
right. And that's oh, I try to be a good teacher, and I when I have ideas or concepts like this, I try to pass it on to my students. Now, I may not, I might be a little more articulate and say like, well, what do you think the audience is perceiving? You always know your audience, so I'll have a student play and they'll maybe play one or two wrong notes and they'll be worried about that. I'm like, well, everyone plays wrong notes or misses a second ending or the bridge, whatever. But just, how do you deal with that? And just play. I mean, by definition, play is play.
Yeah.
It's like we're very critical of our own playing, and that's okay. I'm not saying be sloppy as a player, but try your best and know that you tried your best, and the next day's another day. I heard this interview with John Coltrane 6 months before he passed away, and he wasn't happy with his sound. And the interviewer was befuddled. They were like, "What are you talking about? I just heard you play." He goes, "I need to go home and do more long tones." And this interview was being taken place in a supermarket. So he was just following him around with a recorder. And the guy says, "I just heard you play. You sounded amazing. You're John Coltrane." He goes, "Yeah, but what you hear and I hear are two different things." He goes, "I need to do more long tones." And I
Wow.
was running at the time, 2, 3 miles, and I just stopped, and it just struck me because I had it on an iPad. I was just running around, and my neighbor asked me because I just sat down in the cement and I was scratching my head, and my neighbor asked me, "You okay? Are you having a stroke?" But it really floored me that, Train was pursuing, this sound, and he told the person, he goes, "What I hear and you hear are 2 different things." So and this was 6 months before he passed away, and that's, like, hundreds of albums and recordings and everything he did. So the pursuance of something that's almost unattainable is good and bad. It's good if you're at peace with it, but bad if it overtakes you. Like, if you always think you have to get something better, you have to feel good about what we're doing. So I guess it's in being, in a full circle, I guess that's what I'm getting at is if, people that are like in music studying, in college studying music or people of our generation just trying to play, like we can't forget, like we should feel good as well. We feel good, they feel good. Um, or find something that you have that just helps you through all that, helps you through the jet lag, helps you through 4 plane rides, all the nuts and bolts about things. Help you when someone says your visa document isn't in order, go to the back of the line or
Yeah. No, this is so interesting too because when you mentioned that story with John Coltrane, yeah, I mean, you think about some of the greatest players of all time, and even I keep thinking about when I spoke to Dr. Ed Kaye, when I spoke to Pedro
Oh, Ed's a
Eustache.
great player.
Yeah,
I heard Ed on alto. I'm glad he plays tenor mostly.
yeah,
Ed in Miami at, or where was it? University of Central Florida, where this 2 great saxophone players, George Wernchuk and Jeff Rupert, teach and play and everything. And Ed just tore it up. Ed was a great educator, great player, but he always played tenor. And there was something that recently he was on alto, and I was like, "Oh my God, stay on tenor." But what he was like doing this thing with articulation. It's on YouTube, but it was at one of the shows, and he was wow, he's just great.
yeah, him, Pedro Eustache, and what struck me, at some points in the interview, they're like, "Yeah, no, I have so much," especially Pedro, "I have so much work to do. I have so much work to do." And I'm thinking, "You played on all the Dune movies. You played with Yanni. You could do anything. You created over 600 instruments. I've got so much work to do." And it just really struck me, just like the interview with John Coltrane, and it's about tonal concept. And everybody's tonal concept is gonna be well, it's gonna be a little different, but you said I forgot exactly how you said, but the pursuance of maybe excellence or something like that, not you don't want it overtaking your life to the point where you're miserable, you
Right.
want it to the point where, yes, I'm like a kid in a sandbox, I'm curious, having the sense of curiosity, like my trumpet teacher Vince would say to me, always have the mind of a child and be curious. That's cool, but if you're obsessed about it to the point where, you're gonna be miserable and beating yourself or whatever, then, you have to that's not healthy, obviously.
No, no, and yeah, you just have to realize, a great vibes player here in Cleveland, Ron Bush, told me one time when I first came to town, he was like, "Just realize, like, every day you practice, you get better, and some days, um, you're maybe it won't sound as good as you want, or we all have good and bad days, but that's okay. It's better than not doing it because then you work backwards." So, I kind of, you just have to do it every day. I leave an alto out just like you have in the back, a tenor, and just sitting in when I first walk in the door, there's a horn sitting for me to play. And I picked that up from John Coltrane. John had a horn in his kitchen. He had one on top of his upright piano, and then he had one in the case. He had three tenors, and he would just make sure that he went right to his horn.
Yeah.
So I try to do that. Like I may have to. My repair technician Gary Bindus says I should put in the case. It gets dusty. He was like, "What's all this dust on your horn?" Yeah.
Well, I have to worry about earthquakes, so
Yeah,
I won't always
sorry about that.
I won't always store it like that, but, um, I understand when students say, I just, I just don't practice as much." And the first thing, if you can have it on a good solid stand, and not have the neck and the mouthpiece attached, that you should take off because then that gets disgusting. But at least half the battle is fought there, but that's gonna be motivating enough to pick it up. And even if it's 15 minutes and it's a
Yeah.
solid 15 minutes, that's
Yeah,
better than nothing.
and if you need to play something that makes you feel good, then play that. Play "Smile" by Charlie Chaplin. If you need to have more, like, reminders of what you need to do, just play a low B flat. I mean, Sonny Rollins did that for hours, under a bridge. Unfortunately, we lost him. He was such a great guy. I mean, aside from how what a genius he was, and transcended so many styles. He played with the Stones. I mean, wow.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy, it's crazy. But I'm gonna bring this back to you, though. So, you're getting ready for this trip to India again. Talk to me about that. What exactly is gonna be going on?
Well, we're playing, it's kind of interesting. We're in a trio setting. So normally I have my friends or um, other musicians I use in Europe. There's a great a drummer in Budapest, Aaron Nairo, and this bass player in Italy, Gianluca Liberatore. And we'll work, we'll take myself and the trombonist Chris Anderson, who teaches at Oberlin Conservatory. And we'll go there and we'll use house rhythm sections comprised of these gentlemen, but right now, it's primarily a concert at their National Center for the Performing Arts in Mumbai, and that's where everything happens: classical, jazz, education. It's their Lincoln Center basically. So it's an evening of original compositions. I'm working on one, um, and it's I just don't want to. It takes me time 'cause, I just don't wanna write a blues or something like that, and, I'm featuring some of the compositions from our pianist, Theron Brown, who's a wonderful writer. He played Herbie Hancock in the Miles Ahead movie. He was the actor in that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, he's a young, thespian as well as a pianist, arranger. He just, produced, a play, a drama. Just wow, so talented.
Mm.
Mm. So we're doing some of Theron's music, and then some standards, some just a potpourri of every different style. Like, but it's not dated. It's not like starting with early jazz. It's just they're looking for a more modern program, which was requested by me. They just don't want standards. They want fresh material. Or some things that people haven't heard that much of, like Wayne Shorter. So Wayne's a prolific composer as well as wonderful saxophonist, and paying homage to his music as well. And that's, basically an hour and a half of repertoire to go by quickly.
Yeah, okay. I'm really curious, when you're going to countries like Mumbai, but even Korea, I hear, like, there's, the tremendous interest in saxophone in Korea, South
Oh
Korea.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Jody Espina told me that,
Yeah.
and
And I would, if, how do I put it? I know I was the first saxophonist to play with their orchestras
wow,
20 some years ago.
wow.
So I know that the interest was piqued by that because people didn't hear the instrument in a classical setting. And then I would teach workshops there every summer. And I'm talking about hundreds of saxophonists. And there was an army. I was teaching lessons in my hotel room. And I looked outside. It was like 11 p.m. from teaching at 9 in the morning. And there was a line of saxophone players. And they just wanted to like work on their fundamentals and things like that. For
Wow.
most of the saxophone players were taught by clarinetists 20 some years ago. So I would stay in touch with their teachers and their professors and send them like pedagogical materials, how to start saxophone year 1, year 2, year 3. And I feel really good about that. I need to go back there. COVID did a lot of damage to the arts everywhere globally.
Okay, even there too.
Oh yeah, the world just took a back seat for a minute.
Yeah, no, I know out here, it was especially rough because things were closed down longer in California than most other places, and I understand it. I get it, from a health perspective, but it definitely was really tough. But I wasn't sure in terms of other areas of the world. But I'm curious with Mumbai, with India. India's a big country, right? So,
Yeah,
i-
1 billion people.
what's the interest? Yeah, like talk about the interest in saxophone in Mumbai. I know obviously it's a great deal, but, I'm just thinking, how many big saxophone players are there? How many saxophone
Well,
players?
there's a player I worked with for a little bit, a tenor player, Ryan Sardi. He runs a big band now there. If I had more time, I'd probably tour with his band. In fact, I just reached out to him because I'll be in town. I just want to make sure I see him. Aside from the concert, like there's a lot of good friends I want to see. There's big bands. There's combos. There's really everything. You know, and the players sound good. I mean, nowadays if they do their homework, I mean, outlining the changes is outlining the changes. Sounding good is sounding good.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, there's a lot of great players. There's a district, a Bandra area in Mumbai, which has a lot of clubs. In fact, that's kind of how broke in the doors with the jazz community there because they had a drummer, Benny Soames, who unfortunately passed away. This guy was great, man. He was cooking. So he didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who he was. So he just said, "I just want to play duo with you." So we played, and I didn't even want to go to this club. I says, "Man, I need some sleep." But this is Greg, go to this club. So me and Benny played Donna Lee for like 20 minutes straight at a ridiculous tempo. But the jazz community was there and they appreciated it, and so did Benny, because Benny didn't talk to me, because "I just want to play with you." So it was kind of that old school mentality. And I said, "What do you want to play?" And he said, "Donna Lee, but we have to play fast." And he was, "Don't stop." I says, "Okay, sure." And I don't know if I could do that now. And it was hot. I was pouring sweat out of me. It was whatever. Um, but that won the jazz community over because they heard of the people that weren't there heard about it. Like, "Who's this alto guy from Cleveland?" It's like cooking with these guys. So then I played more concerts, and then we just ran out of time to play because I had to get on the plane and go. I couldn't change my tickets. But
Wow.
that one instance of I almost didn't go because I was like, "Man, I'm dragging," and they said, "Just go to this club. We really want you to play." And so I went, and I could even send you, there's a review about it, like, in Rolling Stone magazine. They're like, they were really, they were just happy that that happened, like, duo, just saxophone and drums.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool, and just the level of appreciation, but also musicianship too, right? To be able to do a duo and 20 minutes on just one
It was
tune.
not, and I'm not exaggerating, this game we played until everything was said could be said, and just staying right in the pocket. I didn't change, I just kept on, yeah. I know what he wanted. He was in traditional old school drum. I think he played with Clifford Brown when he went there.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was the it drummer for any jazz artist that went to, Mumbai, and they had, they had Arturo Sandoval, everyone. In fact, some people, much older than me that traveled, that you can't get away from the trip. The trip is demanding. That no matter what, the trip is 2 days, 4 planes, 2 days. There's no direct flight.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's hard, and I know that, they have a jazz festival as well. I don't know how long it's been running, but
For a while. Yeah, I've played on that 3 times. And they've had the Mingus band there, so, they, there's a lot of support for jazz in India. You just have to I was just, once again, like, my career hasn't been luck. I've knocked on a lot of doors. So a conductor I recorded with in Poland happened to be their guest conductor that likes both jazz and classical. So he was their visiting conductor named Peter Borkowski, and we've made CDs together, classical concerto CDs. And he says, "Okay, why don't you come to Mumbai? But I want you to do both classical and jazz." I says, "Okay, fine." So that's how it all kind of came to be. And that was maybe 12 years ago or so, maybe longer.
that's cool. That's so awesome. I'm curious, what aside from so you're gonna be in India for how long? Couple of weeks or something?
No, no. I wanted to, but just how the date's set up is when the academic year begins. So I'll be there for probably just like a week.
Oh, boy, okay, and then you gotta
So what's going to happen, Donna, is all the people that want me to play and do more concerts, I'm going to say, okay, well, how about 2027 or how about 2028 and wait a year?
Yeah, got it, because you also have to think about getting back. You have to be, you have to be fresh for teaching, but and the thing is too, like you said before, it's really hard to travel overseas, especially, that's a rough trip doing that during the school year unless you have like in January, unless you guys have Queens College always have like a month off, unless you have that kind of time off.
Yeah, we have that, or I've played there during Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving isn't celebrated everywhere, so I like to book concerts overseas then.
Oh, wow, okay.
Nothing against Turkey. Uh, but yeah, it just fell in the cracks where actually I would like to stay there a little bit longer because I'm there. So there's a great jazz festival in Rajasthan in northern India. So it just didn't work on the cards because their concerts are in July. So what would I do? It just is what it is. Once I'm there, I'd like to stay there as long as I really can, but it's not always up to me. Like I'm there under the auspices of the MCPA, which is they contracted me, so I basically work for them.
Got it.
So they'll book things and they'll contract things like there'll be workshops and master classes for people and things like that. And if another company wants to engage me, I'll play by their rules of engagement, their business acumen. So their business acumen is if you're hired by us, we dictate what you do in a positive and polite way.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
So if you're on a movie set, you're only going to be the actor in that movie and not go and do a little cartoon on the side.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. One thing I was thinking about before we came on to tape this, and I was thinking about I like to watch a lot of shows on the Food Network,
Oh
and
yeah,
okay, like
yeah, for real.
Tournament of Champions, and
Any of that. Yeah, that's so funny. We're talking about all this stuff, and sorry to interrupt you. When I do all this stuff at the end of the night, I just need to watch something like that. The cooking show, the bake show, the making cakes, or any of that stuff, just to like, yeah, just to be not worrying about like anything else that we're thinking about. Yeah, those are great shows.
oh, it's fun. I like Guy Fieri, and
Oh yeah.
he's fun, and, just all those shows, but you get to know these chefs, and they become TV personalities and stuff, but they always talk about, "Yeah, bring on the heat, I want more spice," and I was thinking, because 'cause you're gonna be going to India, like, when I was in New York, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I could eat with a lot of spice, this is good," but you know what? New York spice like on a level 1 to 10, we think a 10 is like really hot. No, you come out to Los Angeles and that's maybe a 4 or 5.
Right.
You go to Asia, you go to India, you go to Thailand, whatever, that's a 1. So I'm thinking, how do you adapt? Do you like spicy food? And
Oh yeah.
okay.
Um, as I've gotten a little bit old, and I'm from Buffalo, New York, so chicken wings, hot were
Okay.
that was a given. Um, so I'm attracted to it, but on mine, I like Thai. I like everything really. Um, but like Thai food, you have to like Thai hot is, you have a mild, medium hot, then Thai hot. So you just have to be careful and know, yeah, you don't eat street food, just because of bacteria that you're not used to.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to be careful. There's a few times I was in Egypt and I acquired food poisoning just from a cup of tea that wasn't heated enough.
Wow.
Just stay in the hotel and just use the restaurants in the hotel because they were for Western clientele. But I did get food poisoning and it was rough.
Yeah.
It wasn't a 3-day event. It was for weeks. I came back. I was like, wow. Um, yeah, it was rough.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's nasty, but if you're there for a little bit, even a week is a long enough time. Yeah, it is knowing where to eat, and it's knowing what to eat too, because, cultures are so different. Like I said, a New York spice is nothing compared to out here, so I'd say
Don't
no
get
spice.
lost. Don't, people are very social and they wanna hang out with you. Don't get caught in, the nightlife, so to speak. I mean, I'll play in some clubs, but, 11 o'clock could become 3 in the morning, then you have a 9 a.m. rehearsal. So,
Yeah.
it's just knowing the schedule and making sure make sure everyone's happy. Because again, if I was reluctant in sitting in with this group, I didn't know what was gonna happen, but if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be going back in a month.
Yeah, yeah, it's playing it by ear, but you know what, also, I'm gonna go back to what we said before. It was that Olympic preparation, right? That you did, that you've done for concerts that, you have these different, 12 hours time difference and stuff. It's the Olympic athletes have to watch what they eat, they have to be very cognizant of their schedules, you have to make sure you're getting sleep. It's the same thing for music because it's very physical, and then you bring that to another country, and you got that other aspect as well, and different types of food, and, you have to just be mindful of those things. So no, it's cool. It's this is so interesting. And now I'm curious, so you've got the India you've got the India concerts for a week, you're coming back to teach. What other projects do you have lined up for either the rest of '26 into 2027?
I'm trying to think. I know I have a lot of concerts like this month that's soon going to, July 4th will be here in a minute. July has a lot of concerts booked in order to prepare for this. I thought I would book as many engagements. So in 1 week there's like 4 concerts,
Mm,
but local concerts, and then one television show on Fox 8 News here with this wonderful Emmy winning award winning news correspondent Christy Cable. She's been very supportive of my work in the community in Cleveland and elsewhere and things. And so we're playing, like a Good Morning show, like Good
oh,
Morning.
awesome.
But playing live on TV, it has its own set of like, the cameras there.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's a concert at Kane Park. There's a few concerts here at the local jazz clubs with the group that's going with me. So I've really been, I would say a year in planning just to get us ready, like, have as many concerts as I could book in the area, in Northeast Ohio, and then just breathe a little bit, have a few rehearsals and go. So it's going to be pretty intense for July. Then we get a few weeks just to breathe and see what's cooking, what worked, what didn't work, then take it overseas.
Mm. Okay. And you also play with Matthew Alec as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's on the podcast too.
Oh, Matt's a great guy. I don't know how he plays so high. I mean, I think he's reaching 8 octaves. Well, he listens to Lenny Pickett. I don't know how Lenny does what he does.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. I was just thinking, maybe he took your advice and he emulated Mariah Carey.
Something, but and it's really in tune where others don't, um, have that flexibility. It's in tune because he's playing with electric guitars and synthesizers, and uh, and he's fluent up there as well, which is a testament to his hard work. Like that's where he hears the tenor upstairs really high.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool. All right, awesome. Well, Greg, where can people find you online?
Oh, just at gregbanaszak.com, or there's YouTube clips and things like that. My website's a little archaic, but that's okay. I keep on getting criticized for my 1997 website. I just don't know how to figure out how to update it. Technology's not my forte, unfortunately.
That's okay. That's okay. And are you also on you have like a Facebook page or an Instagram or anything like
Yeah,
that?
there's the Facebook page on Instagram and all the other things. I have yet to jump on that. One of a great saxophone player here that moved back from New York to Cleveland, Steve Cortico. He played with Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. He's a great saxophone player. He really I need to get a lesson from him on all those social media aspects, just the marketing things that so inept about. But and yeah, he's a wonderful player. The next generation's really strong. Ryan, Devlin. I mean, the list is, yeah, there's so many players out there that, wow.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all in good hands, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, Greg, it was so awesome to catch up with you.
Yeah, and thank you, Don, and thank you for what you do because it's not easy on your end. So we appreciate all the saxophone players appreciate all your hard work. Um, we do the interview, we talk, but then piecing it together, and I just know my years with the Saxophone Journal interviewing people. It's a process. So thank you so much for everything you do for everybody.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Awesome.